That's weird. So, man, what do you find men just fuck up all the time with dating? So, like, when their ideas, they're like, oh, I should be dating like this versus how modern terms of dating and what you know and you understand. Like, what's the difference?
I think a lot of guys get stuck in analysis paralysis because we're very logical, and the modern world is so overstimulating. We just have a stupid amount of information and opinions. And so I think, keeping it simple, stupid, even though that's a principle we hear in a lot of places, I think that's something that you should do with dating, because I really like the idea of action over marination with anything. But in the dating world, it can be especially scary since dating leads to marriage and partnership. And that's probably the most important decision a lot of guys will make in their entire life. So I think guys just fuck up by thinking too much and not doing enough. And that's not to say that they should only, be putting energy into dating, but it's like anything else. It's more about the consistency and this incremental progression and gamifying it and having fun with it. And I know that I just dropped so many different avenues we can go down, but I think that's the number one thing. And they all lead back to this analysis paralysis, or even the grass is greener fallacy, which can be part of the analysis paralysis.
Yeah, do you reckon that comes from like a fear of just being vulnerable?
Maybe that's part of it, because that's the most courageous thing you can do is be vulnerable. And so it does put you in a vulnerable position. And I think that that's a really scary thing in the modern world, because we're exposed, because people can capture everything. The game of telephone is more prevalent now than it ever was, especially with women, especially in our social circles.
But what do you mean by telephone?
Like
texting?
Like anytime that you approach or talk to or match with a girl, the possibility that many other people will hear about it, whether you know them or not, but you probably do know a handful of them. So there's a risk factor there that I think leads to, or at least contributes to, the analysis paralysis. So there's vulnerability in just like taking action. But and I think there was another podcast, I forget the gentleman's name, that you were talking with, and you talk about with content, you have to stop caring what people think and just do the right thing over and over again for the right people. And you let the people who shouldn't have an opinion on what you're doing and saying fall to the wayside. And I think it's the same thing in dating. You have to get the reps in and just trust that if you do it with integrity, your reputation will precede you, and the right woman, or maybe the women that you encounter along the way to the right woman, will understand the reasons why you're doing it, and just kind of let all the other opinions that you shouldn't be listening to fall to the wayside.
Yeah, interesting. So it's kind of like, I have this idea of like what I want to get out of a relationship and in, a person, whether it be a woman or a man. And it's like, just focus on that. It makes a lot of sense, because one thing that I feel like I got confused in, like with my dating life, was like, okay, write down on a piece of paper everything that I want versus be open to whatever comes in. What do you think's like the best way to go about it? Because I don't know yet, right? I'm still in this thing of like, I don't know.
Yeah, well, and nobody knows. Like, I'm not gonna sit here and be like, this is the answer. I don't like being that prescriptive. I think it's more about exploring what the answer is for you. But it's a marvelous question, and I think the reality is you have to have a list of non-negotiables, because those are the things that are going to compromise the long-term success of a relationship. And then if you go one step further back, why are you looking for a relationship? So I'm prefacing this in the context that a man wants to date to find the right woman, to get married and have kids and a prosperous life with his partner. And so if that's your goal, then the list of non-negotiables should be short, but they should be powerful, and you should never compromise on them. But outside of that very short list, like you said, I think you need to be open, because if you have a very large list, you cut a lot of people out, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but you don't really know what you want. This is what I find working with guys and with myself over the years, is we have the audacity to believe that we know what we want and what we need without the experience to back it up. And no matter how much experience you get, you still probably need more. So I think, why not reverse engineer it and just have, again, this foundation of concrete things that you don't compromise on, but then the flexibility and the openness will actually help you find a woman and capture a woman who far exceeds anything you could have ever planned or wrote a list about. And I call it leaving room for the magic. You got to leave room for the magic, and you'll be so pleasantly surprised. And the byproduct of leaving the room for magic is that it's less stressful, because instead of you trying to manipulate the outcome, all you're doing is putting input in, and you're saying, okay, how's this going to play out? And I find that that's really reviving for a lot of guys. It helps you avoid cynicism, and also makes the dating process less cumbersome and less, time or energy sucking.
Yeah, I feel like for me in that situation, there's multiple times where I'm like, this is exactly what I want. And then I've got it. And then I've been like, oh, this hasn't worked out.
Why didn't it work out in those situations, do you think?
Oh, man. Well, I think is what you said beforehand, right? I think I thought I knew what I wanted, but that was coming from a place of me where I was like, okay, this version of me right now hasn't integrated as much of my own self-awareness and like trauma and patterns and all the rest of it, that I think that I know what I want. Like a prime example for me was I'm like, every time, like for me, whenever I received love from my mum, it was like this mushy kind of soft stuff. And I was like, get the fuck away from me. As a kid, I'm like, ugh, yuck, like no. So I developed this thing that anytime a woman would show me this, like, this love, this softness and this caring and this nurturing, I was like, oh, fuck off, like stay away from me. So I was like, yeah, I don't want a woman who's like as much like that. And then after a couple of relationships, I'm like, oh no, that's exactly what I want from a woman. And I didn't know how to even receive it. So even now, like a date that I went on, someone called me handsome. And I was just like, I love being called handsome. But this is really hard to receive. I was like, because as I was a kid, that's what the older woman would tell me. They'd be like, oh, you're a handsome boy, whatever. And I'd be like, ooh, yuck, like gross. Yeah. So that's what I think on that, dude.
It's interesting because we're basically saying that you have to find this medium where you have enough control, but you're not obsessed with control. And that's why it's hard to define. And I think people have to experiment for themselves to figure out where that middle ground is, right? You have enough direction, you're taking action, you're getting experience, you have experience, and you don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater and be too open. But on the other hand, you also don't want to be so strict and concrete with what you believe to be true, because it will evolve.
Yeah.
And it's an interesting, and I find that, not to get wildly existential in the first, 3 seconds of a podcast, but I think everything in life and in the world is like that, especially when it comes to your desires, is there's this middle ground, and you have to always kind of take into account that people tend to swing to the extremes. And so you have to be conscious of the inertia of your pendulum and keep it in this like Goldilocks zone.
Yeah, and I think it's also part of that is like being careful around your desires and having a lot of awareness around them. Because I like this quote. It's like, when you take a step towards your desire takes a step towards you. And I love that. And that's what's happened to me. It's like, be careful what you wish for, because you just might get it. And then I've been like, oh shit.
Yeah.
But I want to know the difference as well. What's the difference between dating to bang and dating to like find a partner? Like for men in particular, like what do you think the difference is? And is there a different way to approach it if that's the case?
I think it comes from, and I don't know if I've ever really said this out loud, so it's a really good question. So that's why I'm kind of marinating on it. Is I think it comes from, are your needs as an individual met before you're looking for a partner? Because, and it's not to say that, because I don't like the notion that we as individuals should be whole alone. We're social creatures. Like, yes, a little bit of alone time, everybody needs that. But to say that you need to be 100% complete if you were in a vacuum with no interaction with other people in real life, face to face, and no physical affection or emotional connection, anyone would get depressed. There's a reason why that is the primary form of effective torture, is isolation. Yeah. So I don't think the notion that, we have to figure out all our problems on our own, I think that's bullshit. But if you have done enough and you're living a life that gives you the sense of purpose and peace, then I think men are more likely to look for a partnership versus a woman to bang. But if they are kind of, I don't want to say broken, because we're never completely fixed, right? We're always working on ourselves. But if you are kind of neglecting building out the life that you love every day, if you're neglecting pursuing purpose or investing in passion, then I think you're more likely to get distracted by the desires of the flesh and the trivial stuff and the surface level stuff, because you don't understand the value that comes with a long-term relationship. And it's a perspective, I think, based off of origin and intention.
Interesting. I like that. So one thing on this as well is I got so many questions on this. And I'm gonna pivot just a little bit.
Okay.
I want to know your like nightmare horror dating stories that you've had when you've been like super embarrassed, where like you fucked up and you know you've been like, oh shit. Because I feel like even still, it's such a thing for guys. It's like men get a lot of respect if they know how to get the girl, date the girl, get her on a date, kiss the girl, and all those things. Like that's like such a skill, because for us men, what I feel is that we get attached to the, oh my goodness, sex could possibly happen. Then we get like distracted. So it takes a lot of like embodiment, I feel, for men to like go through the dating practice. So I want to hear about like your horror stories and like, you know, what not to do, and then get into like what to do.
That's like, it's half of my book is what not to do. It's based off of my mistakes, you know, because I didn't want to necessarily put other people's mistakes out there. I want to take ownership of mine, and there's something really freeing about that. And so I think it's interesting that we jumped straight to this from what we talked about last time, because I think a lot of the times that men, including myself, fuck up, which is honestly a great way to move forward, is when you are doing it for the wrong reason. And so if I look back, the times that like I was seeing a girl or trying to go on a second date, but I knew deep down that I probably shouldn't see her because the first date didn't go that well, but it was out of loneliness. You know, that was when I fucked up. A lot of things came out of loneliness.
What was it? How'd you fuck up?
It's because on the first date, I was going to be 5 minutes late. I got stuck in traffic, and classic Austin traffic. When I first moved here, I lived out by the Tesla factory, which is like 25 minutes from town. I was coming in during rush hour, which like doubles it at minimum. And so I had this reservation at a sushi restaurant, and this girl seemed sweet. We had matched on Hinge. I had only talked with her over text a few times because I typically like to save the magic for in person. And so on the way there, I was like, hey, I'm going to be like 3 to 5 minutes late. Just wanted to let you know in case you get there before me, because I typically like to get there early, or even liked to pick her up. But she wasn't comfortable with me picking her up, which I totally understand, but I still like to offer because that's who I am, and I believe in chivalry. And then she responded with, oh, you're going to be 3 to 5 minutes late. Like, we shouldn't do this. We should just cancel. I was like, okay, this is pretty extreme reaction, but as I stepped into problem-solving mode, and I was determined, because I'm a stubborn bastard sometimes, to make sure she went out on the date still. So I said, hey, it's going to be fine, whatever, reassured her. I called her, she didn't pick up. I sent her a voice message, and like, you know what, I'm going to go anyway. So I get there, I park, I walk in. I still haven't heard from her. And these 2 girls walk in, and they're like giving me these shifty eyes, and I'm like, what's going on here? And there's another table nearby that's looking at me, and I just noticed these things. I was like, I haven't even heard from her yet. And I didn't have cell service in the restaurant, so I had to step back outside, send her a text, come back in, sit down, tell the waiter like, oh, it's going to be a few minutes. I hope. I didn't know if I was going to get stood up. Go back outside and check on her, and that continued for 45 minutes until she showed up. So it's like, okay, it sounds like that's a her thing. No, I should have read the signs and be like, you know what? Let's not have a date. And kind of backtracked and take ownership over that. But I was so stubborn. I was like, I have to do this, because what does it say about me if I don't get this girl on the date? And so the way it ended up happening is we had a great first date, but those girls that walked in, and the other table was her ex and his friends, and the other table was her friends, and they were like vetting me for her before she arrived. And so I'm not trying to put the blame on her for this, but like sometimes you just have to trust your gut instinct. And when she said, oh, this might be low, I might cancel, my gut instinct was like, you know, maybe I should let that go. Like, I shouldn't necessarily cling to this and force this. But as a result of forcing it, I was like, oh, I got my just desserts out of this, because I kind of saw the writing on the wall and I chose to ignore it. So there's a lot of stuff like that. And that one, I was a little lonely at the time. And I think that's where the desire to make the date happen came from.
Yeah, dude, that's crazy. It's like what is it about like when you're a man where you attract the wrong woman based off like your own nervous system and your way of being? Like, has that happened other times as well? Because it sounds to me like, well, because you're lonely, like it's kind of like you manifested that whole situation, right?
Yeah.
So it's like,
I see it as like a pie chart, you know, and there's different slices that are different categories. And if you are missing a certain slice, it's the same, maybe a puzzle piece is a better metaphor. It's the same shape, of someone else's like lack of regulated central nervous system that fits that. So then it fits and you guys fit together, but it's for the wrong reasons, and it doesn't actually really help the puzzle in the long run. It's like it's actually a different puzzle, just happens to be the same perimeter of the piece, and you're like, oh, this does not look right, this image isn't looking, is it? But it's because you took something out that wasn't supposed to be there. And I know this sounds in kind of juxtaposition or I can't say that damn.
Juxtaposition.
Now we're screwed.
I don't know the word either.
Juxtaposition of what I was saying before, where it's like, oh, because you don't need to be all things as an individual, but I think there's certain categories that when you're lacking or you're insecure or you're out of regulation, you're more likely to find that piece that fits but shouldn't be there. And so sometimes it was loneliness, sometimes it was validation. And there were 2 long-term relationships I had where it was actually the lack of me being assertive or confident enough, which I think is tied to, hormones, testosterone, and just masculinity in general. So it's interesting that when I lacked masculinity, I attracted women who were more masculine, not necessarily in appearance, but in terms of their perspective or their actions, or maybe that season of life, right? Because we all have ebbs and flows. And so that was a big one for me. And I see for a lot of guys, it's like it's not that we want to be hyper masculine, right? We should be 80-20, I think, for most of the time. But the lack of really stepping into your masculinity, of being confident, of being appropriately assertive and tactful.
So what does it look like for a guy if you notice that, like, he may not know if he's not being assertive and confident? So, like, what are the signs that a guy has if he's not that?
I think you feel it because you want to say something, but you catch it before it comes out, right? You have these thoughts and these feelings, and you're like, oh, I shouldn't do this because I might get a bad reaction. Or I shouldn't do this because who am I to share my opinion? Or I want to say this, but my opinion's not important. I don't add any value.
Yeah.
It's these kinds of self-talk and that kind of track that I think really shows that, because I think a man who's really stepping into his masculine and his confidence isn't afraid to say what he believes. Now, that's to say he's an asshole, right? Again, the pendulum always swings, but there's a certain level of tact and conscientiousness that comes with sharing your truth.
Yeah, it's like leading like that. Like,
Yeah.
I remember shitting my pants when it comes to like holding a girl's hand or like getting a kiss, like the whole like the conversation of like, oh, how do I get the kiss? Like get in my head, like if I do this thing and this thing and this thing and blah, 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 instead of just like reading the energy and going with like, how am I going to kiss her?
Yeah.
Or like, oh, I want to say like, I just want to say something cheeky to her or like this, which is about the relationship with the date used to like scare the living shit out of me. I remember like a few years ago, and then like changing that was just ridiculous.
What changed for you between like then and now?
It was, as you were talking about, the assertiveness and confidence. It was like getting clear on who I wanted to be as a masculine leader. And I was like, okay, like men, like one thing is like what I heard is like women want a man who has like emotional intelligence and can lead. And it's like, okay, that's something that she wants. And I feel like that's like a whole different conversation. But for me, I was like, the realization was, oh, I want to lead in the relationship and I want her to follow my leadership. That turns me on. So I was like, okay. And I didn't realize this sort of like, domish kind of energy that I like to play in. And I was like, oh, if I lead this way, that for me is going to go, oh, I like this, which gives me more energy in the relationship. I'm like, I'm having fun right now. And then if I try to lead and be like a little bit dommy and I get like gratitude back or I get like a little bit of push, I'm like, oh, this is fun. We can play in this. And then like, yeah, that's like what changed for me. So
yeah. It's really interesting because there's some, and I was just talking with some guys about this last night. There are some instances where a woman gives you really positive feedback for taking the lead and telling her the honest truth and making decisions. And there's other times where that same woman will be like, why did you tell me this? You shouldn't have said that. Like, I don't like this. And I think it's all, and it's not to say that they're, bipolar or that you're doing anything wrong, but whether it's just so much context, there's so much context that's required for each situation of when should you offer your opinion and how much have you asked questions before you take leadership action, because I think a lot of times people think a leader is somebody who just always knows the right answer and is always going to do the right thing and should never be questioned. That couldn't be further from the truth. I think true leadership is getting a pulse check on the front lines, right? Like a good commander or general or whatever is also led by the information that comes from the front lines. Now, do they make the ultimate decision in times of crisis? Probably. But do they also outsource trust? And do they also take in information all the time, or they'd be a shit leader, you know? And so I think that's a nuance that's often missed, is like, if you have to walk around with invisible lat syndrome and bump it, like metaphorically or literally, and you're just like knocking shit over and you're not paying attention to the environment or the variables or the people that you care about around you, that's not leadership. That's just an absence of awareness.
Yeah. So how do we get good at that as men?
I think asking for feedback is a big part of it. And not just from women, but from men that we respect. And really, even the people that might be like, if you're in a business where there's a hierarchy, sometimes the people below you give you the best feedback. If you're a coach, I get the best feedback from my clients. I wouldn't be able to lead without their feedback. With my girlfriend, it's the same way. I could not be able to lead without asking questions and really marinating on her feedback. And I think it's the same thing within our families and our friendships, right? The people that you're closest to, that respect you the most, that will follow your leadership, the probability they will do so is exponentially increased when they know, because you've done the foundational work to understand their perspective, even if you don't agree with it. That's just curiosity, I think, is underrated in leadership for that reason.
Yeah. So how do you think that we can use this if I'm a single man, I was like, I want to get some dates now. How do we like use that to actually get dates with women that we want to be on dates with?
I think you have to have fun with it and gamify it. But I'm always hesitant to say the word gamify, because you're like, oh, you're playing games. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, like, make a process of discovery, which is really part of curiosity, within the dating world, so that you have so much inertia. So no matter how many times you might get shut down or ghosted, or someone's like, dating multiple men and not being truthful with you about that you just love the process of discovering what's out there and learning from that feedback that you get from women along the way, that you don't care about the outcome because you're enjoying the process. Which I know sounds like a little bit cliche, but for me and the men that I work with, that's sometimes the only thing that saves you from cynicism. And when you can keep cynicism at bay and you can enjoy and gamify the process to your own
what do you mean
preference,
by cynicism, by the way?
Like, I think as men go on dates and they start to meet women that maybe they don't get along with, or they have bad experiences with those women, or they get ghosted by these women, or maybe they're like, oh, they have a good personality, but I'm not attracted to them in other dimensions, they start to lose hope. And so I think that cynicism is really just a lack of faith in the other gender, or in relationships or dating in general. And it happens to both men and women. And so the biggest part outside of gamification and enjoying the process, I think, is faith that all of this is leading to something that will be worth every step and every hardship.
And I love the terminology gamification. Like, I love games. Like, for me, I think it's fantastic. People are like, oh, like, who are you here to play games? I'm like, yeah, but there's a difference if you're playing toxic games because your intention's off, versus I can play games because I know what I want. This is going to be fun, and I actually get to play.
Yeah.
Because I feel like, I don't know, I'd love to hear your opinion on this. Like, as an adult, it's like adult play is the dynamics
So important
between like man and a woman. Like, that is the playing. It
Yeah.
is the teasing, the mucking around, the playing games. Like, oh, are we going to date? Are we going to go second?
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah. It's like, it gets a little bit risky and fun. I'm like, for me, I feel like the games is it.
Yeah. You can create inside jokes. It can lead to really deep conversations. It makes life fun. And I think even in the early stages of dating, playing games to the degree that you're talking about is actually the spice of life. Because people talk about, especially I hear from men a lot, dating the same girl, she gets boring, sex gets boring, conversations get boring. And I was like, you're probably not taking the initiative to gamify life with
Bro, you're fucking boring, bro.
Yeah, well, you're not even just investing it. I don't think people are by default boring. I think the world makes us boring, because in our pursuit of, finding purpose and passion, the world beats us down, and we start to even if we don't realize it, we start to concede more and more and more. And it's an uphill battle. But then when you resist and you fight, that's when you have fun with literally everything, even if it's not something that you enjoy, even if life throws you a curveball, like you got a breakup you didn't see coming, or your wife cheated on you, or you got stood up on a date. Later on, you'll find a way to laugh about it and learn from it. And so I think humor and that kind of gamification makes everything from waking up in the morning next to your significant other to walking the dogs and making coffee to running grocery errands. It makes it fun because you're joking and you're laughing and you're building depth and all these things. And so, and that's not just dating, right? That's in your work. People who are playful in their work are also the most successful and the most motivated.
Yeah, so true. I heard, I think it was Owen Cook said this. Do you follow Owen Cook?
No.
Oh, he's great. I like a lot of his content.
Yeah.
And he said, you know, and I really believe this. He was like, women don't give a fuck about your money. They don't give a fuck about the shit you've achieved. They don't care about your cars. They don't care about your body, blah, blah, blah. He's like, you know, and then he's like, a lot of men feel like women aren't actually that loyal. They're like, why am I attracting these women here that aren't loyal? He's like, dude, women are like designed to be the most loyal creatures. And the only reason she's not loyal is because you're not having fun with her. Like if she was having fun and you made her laugh, which is written on like every girl's Hinge profile, like, I want a man who can make me laugh, right? He's like, she will literally like burn under a bridge with you until you can get to X, Y, Z. It's when, you know, that in the relationship isn't working is when it like fucks up. So I'm like, how do you gamify that process to make that happen for men?
I think you have to first realize that everything worth doing in life has a hurdle. If there was no price to pay for entry, it wouldn't be worth it. And the right relationship in dating women is no different. So once you come to terms with, oh, this is something everybody deals with. This is not like there's something wrong with me. It's not that I'm broken or that other guys don't encounter the same problem. It's just that I need to get a little bit of a thicker skin, build in the reps, get some experience, build a proficiency, and then enjoy that process. Because like it goes back to what you were saying before. It reminds me of sports. Like you could play games, which is like really just trolling or fucking with people, which is, I would say, the toxic realm, or avoiding the truth is like the toxic games. But then if you think about sports, like there's a reason why guys love sports, because there's a role, you get better at that role. There's other people you're performing with around you and competing with. And whether you win or lose, when you leave the pitch or the court or the field and you've done your absolute best, there is no better feeling. And so I think it's the same thing with dating. And that's how you really enjoy the process and build the confidence, because you love the game, not playing games, but you love the game of progression, because that gratification is probably paralleled by very little in life.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. So I want to know, what are some things that you do that have been like gamified, that you've had a lot of fun before you got into a relationship, when you were like dating and you were like, yeah, I'm hitting this. Like this is some good shit right here. Like I'm having a lot of fun. Like what's that for you?
At first, I was married for 5 years, got divorced, moved to Austin, never lived in a city, never been on the apps. So part of the initial game was like, how do I get matches with the women I'd like to take out?
So you started apps?
Sorry?
You started?
Yes, when I moved here for the first time. So Hinge. Yeah, it's not about, Bumble or Tinder, because I don't like it when the woman starts the conversation, because that's not the kind of woman I'm looking for. I need to have the courage to start the conversation, and that was hard for me. So I was like, I can't use Bumble because that doesn't help me strengthen that skill set. And the most fun I had was as I started to go on first dates with women. It was like, how can I show up more unabashedly myself versus the representative? And what the representative is all the good parts about myself that I would think a woman wants to see, and unabashedly myself is like the edgy shit. That's really me.
Like what?
So like on the first
some
date,
edgy shit, bro?
Like dark humor, like Helen Keller jokes. Right? Like I'm like if we're talking, I'm gonna ask her a question. She says something, and I have a funny joke that comes to mind. I'm like, all right, let's pressure test this. I just lay it out there, and does she feel uncomfortable? Does she laugh? Does she like look around and see like what? How does she react? And so that became part of a game for me of like, how can I remove the filters and say and like also being really into the holistic health, working for Paul Saladino. I always said like fuck vegetables and see how like women react, right? Because she's like, what do you mean? I thought vegetables is good for you. And then I like kind of go down that spiel. And because that was a big part of my life when I moved here, is like working for Heart and Soil before it and Paul took off. And so I was part of that, cult. I mean, they're great. I don't really think it's a cult, but like that was important to me.
It was my cult and I loved it.
Exactly. But like, why would I restrict those things? Because it's like setting expectations. If I don't have the courage to show my dark humor, my range, what's important to me, even if it's opinionated, even if she might not like it, then further down the line, it's going to cause problems. So I think of relationships and the dating world in general as a long-term investment. And if you're not willing to do the right things in the beginning, it will be a short-term investment.
Yeah.
And then that short-term investments are a waste of resources. They're very painful. And in the beginning, they seem easier. But in the long run, they're so much harder.
Yeah, I feel like that's so handy for men, especially to understand. It's like, because men get shit tested a lot from women. Where they get on a date and they'll start getting tested straight away and just like saying things, and men are on edge straight away, where it's just like poking or prodding or pushing his masculinity or seeing what he can do. And then like, he will fail those shit tests and be like, shit, now I need to prove myself that I'm the guy. And then you've lost already, bro.
Yeah.
So you've lost already. Like you've lost like some sort of position.
Yeah.
When I like that, because that's like you're testing her to see if she actually fits in your life. So then, and I feel like for men, that's the best way to go, because she does. It's the reason she shit tests you is to see if she can match in your life, not like the other way around. Because, it's like, if you're the one who's going to impregnate her, she's going to have a family with you, blah, 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 blah. It's like, you're the leader. You know what I mean? Most of the time, it's like, she's going to trust, even if she makes all the money, you're still leading in the relationship. You know what I mean? So it's like, I feel like she's trying to test that.
Yeah.
But that's genius, because it's like, it's putting you in like a frame or a position where it's like, that's where confidence gets built. And that's where like insecurity disappears, like making a lot of sense out of what you're saying.
Yeah.
Because you know what you want as a guy. So it's like, test this. And if she doesn't fit, too bad. Like, date's not going to go well. We can finish it there. It's all good. Like, I'm all good with actually rejecting you and not being the one who's been rejected.
Yeah. And I didn't really think about it that way. Maybe I'm more simple-minded, because again, like, we're so inundated with overstimulation. I was like, what's the best way to filter out and be honest with myself? I was like, oh, I'm not really testing her. I'm just looking for compatibility. So it's more of like, and I don't mean to pick on the semantics of it, but I like the word like discovery versus test. I'm discovering who she is, and she's discovering who I am. I'm not like, all right, here's the test. You're going to pass or fail. Like, I'm genuinely curious. And I think women, and it's hard, I don't want to speak from the woman's perspective, but I talk to a ton of women, because I don't want to think I have these theories and hypotheses and I'm telling men something, but I have no idea if it resonates or works with women. And the feedback I get most from women is that dates go well when they don't come into it with this preconceived notion that they have to figure out if a man is good or bad or right and wrong. And I think it's a similar thing for men, is like, you should go into it with discernment, but openness. And then with what you were saying, it's so, you don't even play the game of the test. Even if they test you, you just choose not to participate. And that's almost like the most powerful thing you can do.
Well, it's the most authentic.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I feel like that's the main gist of it. It's like, regardless, it's like in the moment, like, whether there's language and tests or not, like, both ways, whatever it is, it's like, it's your ability just to remain as authentic as possible the whole time without getting into your head. Like, how do you think men can like get to that position?
Before I answer that, I have to illustrate, in case there's females listening or men who like really want to know that they're not the only ones that deal with this. When you're meeting a woman for the first time and you're resisting the, I don't know, not even the impulse, but the urge to not be authentic, it's equivalent to, what's that famous statue where the guy has the world on his back?
Atlas.
That's what that reminds me of. It's like being fucking Atlas, because the pressure's there. But you just have to hold this thing for an hour or however long and not let the urge to be an authentic crush you. That's really what it feels like. And so it's like, and maybe women don't know that, and maybe the women have the same pressure. I don't know. But I think for the men out there that have gone through dates and they're feeling this and like, oh, wow, nobody else probably has as much trouble being authentic as I do. No, we all are there, because there's this innate thing in us to lead with our best foot and to impress somebody. And I get that. And that's not necessarily a terrible thing. But I would say just flex that muscle over and over until you can hold the Atlas stone for the whole first date. And I think you'll be really happy with how that goes.
Yeah, I like that, because I think like the more authentic you are as well, then you can actually start to build intimacy. Because I know one thing that men also struggle with a lot is trying to bring some intimacy into the first date, right? And be like, oh, I need to bring something here, and like, you know, create a sort of tension, and there's pressure for that as well. And if they don't know how to do it authentically, they kind of fuck up. So like,
Yeah.
you know, from your knowledge, like how can men like create and stimulate, you know, some more like intimate moments during the actual relationship so they don't get friend zoned? Because that's the thing. I know, like, so many times I've been on dates before, especially when I was younger. I'd go on dates and I just get friend zoned all the time, and I was like, fuck, why do I always get friend zoned? And it was so frustrating.
Yeah.
So
I think the answer to this question is similar to the answer of your last question with that, which I realized I didn't really fully answer with the Atlas zone. So I want to revisit it. Is you incrementally build up this muscle, right? It's not like you listen to this podcast or you decide that you're going to be authentic and you go on the first date and you hold the Atlas stone for an hour. It's about, oh, I'm going to see how long I can hold on to it. Maybe the first time it's 15 minutes and then I start to degrade in terms of my authenticity. That's okay. Give yourself some grace and do it again. And then you'll find it'll be 30 minutes and then 45 and then 60 and then 3 dates and then 4 months, then a year, or however long, you know? It's just like the physiology. You do best when you give time for your body to acclimate. And it's the same thing with your character and letting that unabashed side of your character shine through. And so when it comes to creating intimacy or the spark or the magnetism, I think it's similar. You know, you kind of have to take a shot. And I think part of it is physical intimacy and the other part of it is range. So back to the vulnerability piece. And this leads into being unabashedly yourself. If you can cover an array of, you know, humor and also depth, when you're vulnerable through a story of somewhere where you fucked up, or it's something that hurt, but it meant a lot to you and you've grown from that, that I think will create attraction in a woman. And I don't think men should do that for the purpose of creating attraction, but I think they should do that for the purpose of being vulnerable and flexing that muscle. And then you build up this thing where, oh, I can be vulnerable, you know, on the second date, but then I can actually be vulnerable the first date, or maybe it can be vulnerable over text before I meet her, or like when I approach her in the wild or whatever. And it's kind of like a reverse engineering side of it, is like the sooner that you're vulnerable, the more easy I think it is to build emotional intimacy. And physical intimacy is, I mean, that's a whole nother conversation, but I think it starts with the emotional link for women. And then you kind of get the signs that you can take permission to hold their hand, or put your hand in the small of their back to push it, position them away from traffic. All these, like, you know, cliche things, they really work. But all three of these areas, it's all about incremental progression.
Yeah. And it's like, you know, what's the journey from like a guy who's like I say, I'm scared shitless to do that, to getting the confidence to be able to do it? Like what is that progression?
1,000 reps.
Yeah.
Just thousands and thousands of reps. Because, and again, maybe my gym bro-ness is showing, but you don't go into the gym and you bench 225 for the first time, right? You have to you have to decide to get a gym membership. You have to go to the gym. You have to figure out form, maybe get guidance. Like, that's the thing about this that really grinds my gears sometimes, really rustles my jimmies, is that, I knew I should have said that, is that, locking in.
That was funny, bro.
Is men think that they pop out of the womb and they should be able to date like a pro. What skill in life to literally leave your mom's vagina and you just know exactly how to do it,
bro,
and the way that you need to,
bro.
So this is why community and coaching and guidelines and repetitions and experience are so helpful. And it's the same as a gym. I've seen some, you know, Instagram clips of these like babies who look like Arnold Schwarzenegger incarnate, just popping out of the womb. But if you're not that guy, and most of us aren't, I feel like you need to know that other men are going through the similar challenges. You might need a mentor or guidance, or like a dating Sherpa, or whatever you want to call it. And so I think the more that we reduce the stigma about learning about how to show up unabashedly yourself and how to date and how to pursue your purpose, then the better men will get at dating, the better the dating world will become.
Bro, I think better healing in general will become, because I feel like men who aren't getting the dates and getting frustrated and always get rejected and take it out of themselves, and then if they start like going down the temptation route of drugs and other stuff and blah, 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 they're the ones who get fucked up. They're the ones that hurt themselves or other people if they don't, because they aren't getting the attention that they need. Like, there was a study done that was like, this is really heavy, by the way, just on here. It was like they studied all these men who were rapists, And they were like, it was like 90% of them, they went into, no, it was 100% of them. They were like, okay, why did this happen? Right? Men who convicted this crime. And it was every single one of them didn't get the love that they needed from their mums. So they tried to grab it for themselves, right? Out of unintegration. Yeah. And I'm like, well, a solution to that, because I don't think any woman should ever go through anything like that fucking ever. I'm very passionate about that, is teaching men how to fucking date. Like, it really is, because then they can get what they want in like a healthy way, especially from a young age when our testosterone is like so fucking high, man.
Yeah. That's a really good way to link those together. At first, it's like, where are you going with this? We're about to get canceled straight up. But you're right.
It's just a study.
You're not wrong, dude.
Yeah.
But no, what I mean, how you connected the study to the solution, I think there's something to that. Because, I mean, especially when your testosterone is high, and it should be, which is a whole nother epidemic and problem, you do need something to channel that to. And it needs to be your purpose or your person or something, you know, in between,
I like that.
you know?
Dude, yeah, because when this is like what it was like. I want to know why, essentially, I want to know why you're so passionate, right? And I want to know like how you got there. But for me, I grew up singing, dancing, and acting. So from the age of 8 to the age of 16, I had the most feminine attention you could ever imagine. I mean, like, I would lay down on couches. I'd have a girl in between my legs, a girl on like in front of me, 2 girls laying behind me, and then one like playing with my hair. I would go to like our dance parties at our like dance place, and I'd have like one girl grinding on one leg, one girl grinding in the middle, one girl grinding on the other leg. I'm 12, bro. like I'm 12, right? I would be like behind stage, like when we're about to get on stage in theater productions, and we're like kissing girls and like trying to get their boobs out and all this stuff. Like, all this is like happening all the time. I'm like, yeah, like 10, 11, and 12 with all of this attention. Then leading on to like 13, 14, 15, and it's just like saturating me. I'm like, oh my God, look at this. But I was like the guy of like the dance school, like me and a couple of the bros, because we had like actually some more dudes there. But it just happened everywhere. Like everyone at like, you know, dance schools, because there's men and women, girls and like boys and stuff. And we're like, you know, we're creating TV shows together, theater productions together. There's a lot of intimacy gets like created in a short period of time.
Yeah.
We were all going through it. Like, everyone was just like hypersexualized as well, because there's a lot of different ages.
Yeah, it's like
right?
summer camp on steroids.
Bro, yeah. So, but like, we're young, man.
Yeah.
But when I hit like my teenage years and we started going out to town and meeting girls and all this stuff, no attention. And I was like, what the fuck is going on? So I had this entitlement of like, I should be getting attention. So I never even wanted to approach girls. I never wanted to even talk to girls. I was like, no, they come to me, blah, 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 blah. But at that age, when you're like 20, broke, uni student, whatever it is, you ain't getting no damn attention.
Yeah.
So it's like, I want to know, like, for you, like, how did you get really passionate about it? And what was like the things for you that helped you understand how to get what you want?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I didn't know until I had 4 breakups.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, okay.
It's a great question, but I'm really curious when you were, because that's a really young age to get that much attention, and you don't really know a lot about yourself, and you're still developing, and hormones, yeah, the whole nine. So I'm curious, looking back, how did that make you feel to get all that attention?
I felt like a G, dude.
Yeah.
I was the G. Ego just went, I was like, hey, I'll just always get. Like, it was kind of like a good attitude, I think, to be in, if it's from like a healthy position. But because I just got so much attention all the time, it was like fantastic. However, whenever there was a girl that I actually wanted, couldn't get her. Because I was just so used to, oh yeah, and I was just like, attention from every girl's, but there was one girl that I would like. And then next minute, because I didn't know what to do, I mean, I'm 12 and I'm like pursuing women. I'm like, I want to date this girl.
I still thought they had cooties at that time.
Yeah. I was like, I want to make this girl my girlfriend. And then especially getting like 14, 15, and then like, you know, having conversation with sex of all the girls there. And like,
Yeah.
I remember, I think I was like 13 and I had a conversation with a girl who was like 16 or 17. She just told me everything about sex, because I was just asking her questions, and I was like, I want to do that, bro.
Yeah.
And I'm like 13. So it kind of like got confusing, and I put a lot of pressure on myself to fit in with the big kids
Yeah.
in order to, you know, have sex or date or get women. So
Yeah.
bro, there was a lot of ego at that age and a lot of expectation. So I think that created a lot of entitlement for me, which is why I feel like I got smacked by like, you know, 4 big breakups. Yeah.
We were probably opposite in that way. It's like, I didn't think that women would ever be interested in me when I was 12 or 13, no matter how big or strong or successful or wise that I got over the rest of my years. And so obviously that was me being hard on myself. It has not been true, but that's part of why I'm passionate about it, is because I really had about when I was in middle school with self-loathing and self-value. And it's really interesting how our character arcs evolves, because as a kid, I didn't care what anybody thought. I was very individual. I was everyone's friend. I just wanted to go out and adventure and meet people and live life. And then you start to go through adolescence, and at least for me in the US in middle school, things got really tough because you start to become aware that you might care what other people think. And then I started to overthink, oh, am I saying the right thing? Do people like me? Blah, blah, blah. The reality is they don't give a shit. But I didn't know that then. And so like I contemplated suicide. I almost pulled the trigger literally, but I had a friend who also almost OD'd, and I saw what that did to his life and his family. So I was like, I'll never do that. I'll never consider that again.
And that was from judgment at middle school?
That essentially, I was bullied a little bit, but really, if I'm honest, it's more about how I chose to view myself. That was the problem.
Got lonely and started like that loneliness started spiraling.
Exactly. Okay. Exactly. But then after I saw how detrimental my friend's suicide attempt was, I was like, oh, this is the most unkind thing I can do for anybody around me or anyone I care about. And so that was probably like early high school. And so then I started to come back up to who I was. I returned to who I was as a child. And I just started to become more playful and reasonably disagreeable and more authentic and all these things. And since high school, it's probably been, there's still some things I'm working on, but it's been like 12-year progression. There's a big hockey stick, but it's never stopped. And I noticed that I was more magnetic with women and more at peace with the relationships I was in, the further towards my natural state that I progressed, or rather returned to, which is very interesting. So my passion comes from helping guys realize and just wanting to plant the seeds that you can either choose to be a victim to the modern world and to the dating world, or you can choose to return to who you are at your core. And in the process, you can acquire the woman of your dreams.
Yeah. So what was that like for you? Because like you got married.
Yeah.
So like, for you, it was like you were dating, you were figuring out, and you're like, all right, this is the one. Like, let's go into this. Like, how's that impacted like the dating life?
I thought that being married and divorced would make me damaged goods. I thought that I'd have a lot of baggage from it.
Well, was that like hard to get back into dating after that?
It wasn't, because it was a marriage of convenience. And I'm from a small town, a small area, and we knew each other for years before we started dating. Our families knew each other. We were in a cappella in college growing up. So it's like we had a lot of similar friend groups. It just made sense because honestly, there weren't a lot of options. And we got along well. We'd always been friends. Even though we would date different people, and then we would be on a double date with, like, me with my girlfriend and her with her boyfriend. And so we just knew each other well for so long that it made sense. But then when we got into the marriage, I kind of fell prey to being not as masculine as I should have been. And she kind of didn't feel desired, but she was also, what would you say? Like a recluse, because she had a demanding job. So she worked on a horse farm. She would come home late and she'd be so exhausted she didn't really have time for physical or emotional intimacy. So I tried to give her space, but then I overcorrected, and so I just had my own life and she had her own life. And then for the last 3 years of our marriage, it was really tough. And I say all that because there was some really big events that made being married together super tough. But we didn't throw in the towel where most people would have and just gone straight to divorce. So the last 3 years of our marriage, I was kind of thinking about, like, is this the right thing? Should I throw in the towel? So I was so ready to be back in the dating world because those 3 years were so long. At the beginning of every day and the end of every day, my only prevailing thought was, am I doing the right thing in this marriage? Is this marriage the right decision? And so after whatever 365 times 3 is, that's enough days of doing that twice a day to be over it. But I think this is a really powerful thing. And I'm not saying that I should be put on a pedestal or that I'm impressive, but I think we all have the capacity to choose. And the power of choice is one of the most powerful things that we can ever, ironically, choose to recruit within ourselves. So I choose to let that experience make me more determined to do better versus choosing to let that experience beat me down and become cynical and lose hope. kind of back to what we were talking about earlier. So all that to say is when I did start to date again, what I found in Austin is like, the Peter Pan syndrome is very prevalent. So guys like 24 to 45 are just like playing their options, trying to like not be the good version of a big kid, but like immature, like, churlish. And so the fact that I had been married before and I was upfront with women, even on a first date, about the fact that I was married, and that I told them that I actually appreciated the divorce experience because it made me 10 times the man I was prior, which was all true, was actually an attractive thing because I wasn't afraid of commitment, and they could like see that I had learned from that experience. So ironically, it actually, I think, bolstered my effectiveness in the dating world.
Yeah, it's because you have like a commitment to actually dating. So like post that, were you like actually excited to date? Were you like, oh, I can't wait to go out and date? Or were you like nervous? Were you anxious?
Yeah, I was nervous for sure because it had been so long. And again, I still thought I was damaged goods, but I was also very hopeful. Like I was excited because I'm like, after you're in a relationship, but you don't really feel like it's a relationship. Your needs aren't being met. You're not sure if you're doing the right thing for who you're with. That can be so draining. So when it became official, yes, there was sorrow and there was, questioning, but there was also this just rush, just floodgates opened of like hope and optimism for what could be. And that made me really excited, but I was very equally nervous too.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, man, I don't remember. How do I flirt? What do I say? What are they going to think of me? I'm a new kid on the block in this big city. I've never lived in a city with more than 60,000 people. And then I moved to Austin, And so there's a lot of elements there. But more than anything, I had excitement and optimism.
Yeah. So how did you get over the damaged goods? Because I know there's a lot of people that are in that situation. Because if you feel that you're damaged goods, I know that you're like hypersensitive to rejection as well.
Yeah.
So how'd you like move through that?
I think I just owned it. I just tried to throw it up front. And maybe this is extreme. I don't know if everybody operates this way, but I find that the easiest way to deal with challenges is to be upfront about them. So that's why I always, sometimes before the first date, that I, told the girl, like, hey, just went through divorce this many months ago. This is where I'm at. Just wanted to let you know. And ironically, me being upfront built trust with them. So then they were more receptive to who I was because you have to realize what women typically deal with is guys skirting around tough conversations, avoiding telling the truth, avoiding vulnerability. And before they ever met me or on the first date, I let them know that, oh, this guy's not afraid to tell the truth and to own it. And that communicates so many more things, and that differentiates guys almost instantly.
Yeah, is that what you teach in the book?
Yeah.
Like about being upfront?
I think so.
Yeah, like what is that in the...
I call it, being radically transparent. I think, and there is this delineation between transparency and vulnerability, right? Transparency is being able to say the truth, but vulnerability is being able to share how it made you feel and what you learned from it, and owning your mistakes within that experience. And so I think you always need to be radically transparent all the time. Like, I don't care what kind of invasive question a woman asks you on a first date, you answer it with as much truth as you can. And that was one of the big, like, the book is 13 principles. And so being that level of transparent and being unabashedly yourself is like one of the main principles, and it's actually the underlying principle through the rest of them.
Yeah, it's just like authenticity being yourself. What are some other principles, like, based in our conversation, like, especially in regards to like understanding what you want and like getting it? Because I know that transparency thing, like that's worked for me, especially when I've been in a situation where I'm like, I actually don't want to date for a girlfriend. I'm date to have a fun experience, and if it turns too sexual, like, hey, it may turn to that. Am I going to shut love down? No, but like, this is where I'm at. And then, like, having the situation of someone be like, well, that's not for me, and then someone being like, well, fuck yeah, let's go. It's like, oh
yeah,
what the hell?
Not to quote Grant Cardone, but I'm going to quote Grant Cardone. Like, you don't get what you don't ask for. I mean, I'm sure other people say that too, but like, I think so. That really is a simple and effective principle to remember, no matter what you want as a man. But the other principle in the book that I think is really important, I mean, they're all important, otherwise I wouldn't have written them, is viewing every experience as stepping stones. It kind of goes back to what we talked about with cynicism, is I think guys tend to say, oh, I input this amount of time, effort, and money, I should get this output. And if they don't get the output, like, let's say the girl they go on a date with doesn't really excite them, or maybe she treats them poorly, or maybe like it's a bad date, whatever it is, they tend to say, oh, that was a waste of my resources. It was a waste of my time. That was a waste of my effort. That was a waste of my money. I'm like, no, that's an investment. And it goes back to this idea of failing forward and the repetitions. It's like every date you get, whether it goes well or not, whether you get catfished, whether she doesn't like you, whether you never hear from her again, that's 1 inch closer to going the full yardstick and getting to where you want to be with the right woman.
I love that, man. I have this thing that I like to say to myself, and it's like the whole purpose of like a lot of life before we die is connection. So regardless if I get catfished or not, or regardless if it's like, you know, just dependent on the experience, or if it's not a good match, the whole purpose of the experience, regardless of that, is connection. And I weigh up for myself. I'm like, okay, there's this emotional, mental, spiritual, or physical. Because I can meet someone that I'm not like physically attracted to, but I can be very mentally and emotionally attracted to. And I'm like, I'm still going to date you. I'm still going to pay for dinner. I'm still going to do this. And we're going to have an amazing conversation. And just like for me, it's just the basking in the feminine energy when I've just been like grinding and crushing like business or whatever it is the whole time. I'm like, oh, I just needed this fucking date.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think there might be those listening that say, oh, saying I need a date sounds like insecure or validation. But no, female presence is so underrated, and females need male presence too. So it's a mutual exchange. It's mutually beneficial. It's very symbiotic. And I just believe that a lot of guys haven't thought about it that way. But when you do a quick perspective shift and you embrace that reframe, then every experience becomes something where there's a diamond in the rough, and you're just trying to find that gem. You're trying to uncover that nugget. And that's part of the gamifying aspect of, well, you're like, I have no idea who this person is, but I have time with them, and I get to search for this nugget that they're going to give me that I would have never otherwise found. And that's so valuable. And and if they are dating with intention, they're doing the same thing with you. So instead of being like me versus them, are we sussing out the right person? Is this going to be our forever person? It's more like, oh, I know this investment will be worth it for both of us, even if I don't see it in the long run in this moment.
Yeah, dude, I've had some people that I'm like, I'm not like 100% into, but I'm like, I'm kind of into, but then I've got like a business ticket to like a 4-day business retreat. There's like, oh, you should just come along to this. And I'm like, this is fantastic. And like, man, networking, what I've learned has just been like, wow, like I get to have this as well. So that like, you know, understand, like, not, I wish I knew that, what you were just saying before, so that when I was going on dates, I'm like, oh, like no matter what the experience, like commit to it and actually have fun. Also, I want to know, like, one of the last things I want to know about is actually like, how do you think like nice guys, like guys who like suffer from nice guy syndrome, like how do they show up on dates and how do they fuck it up? And what do you think they have to know when it comes to approaching dating, especially in Australia? Because we got tall poppy syndrome, nice guy syndrome is just running rampant out there.
Yeah.
Like I know it's here as well, but I would say more so in terms of ratio over there. So I'm like, I want to give those guys some tools, man.
Real quick, what is tall poppy syndrome? I see you say that. I'm like,
So you guys have it here as well. And it's basically, it's kind of like the crab in the bucket analogy. It's like when one crab tries to come out the bucket, everyone just pulls it back down. Or like the monkey study of just like when every time the monkey went to climb the ladder to hit the banana, even though it was dangling there, like it would get an electric shock. So then all the monkeys over a period of time, whatever it was, would grab the other monkeys down, and like they ended up swapping every monkey in the container until eventually the whole group of monkeys like would never climb the ladder because they were conditioned to bring it down. So with tall poppy, it's the same analogy. They've got like things in Japan and like sayings for it, but it's like one poppy will grow more than the others, and the other poppies like poison it to bring it down.
Oh wow.
So it's just like a cultural experience of just when, you know, when people sort of judge you or criticize you and you're like, you know, you could say something like this, like, I'm going to quit my job and start a podcast. And someone's like, why?
Yeah.
Why just work like everyone else?
Yeah, where it's really more about projection of their own insecurity than it is about you.
Yeah, right. So that comes onto you. So, but we just call it tall poppy syndrome. Everyone has it.
Yeah.
But like, I feel like tall poppy syndrome and nice guy syndrome are one of the same. Like the most nice guys suffer that because they have like the unconscious resentment because they're too busy pleasing everyone else.
Yeah.
That they're like, oh, don't you shine because I don't want you to actually escape from me.
Yeah.
Because then I'm going to feel lonely, which is like my own insecurity. That's like the most common. So like, for people in that situation, when it comes to like dating, because then they're like, you know, they people please, or they're nervous, or they don't want to like do anything out of line, or accidentally fuck up and feel guilty. Like, how would you encourage them to date?
I have so many thoughts in this. because I am a reformed or in the process of being reformed nice guy. So I think about it a lot. And I think most guys nowadays are recovering nice guys. Not all, but the majority, because we grew up in an era where we were told to be chivalrous. Like generally, our parents believed in chivalry, and we didn't want to come off as a creep. And now with technology and the Me Too movement, and also like assaults on our testosterone, guys tend to be too nice. And I'm still nice, but I'm trying to make that be more about kindness, because I think kindness is the wisdom that nice is a short-term investment, but the truth is the most kind in the long run. And it's almost like a shift and a more metamorphosis into kindness. And so when I reframe it that, me not avoiding tough conversations, me having the courage to be disliked by saying the truth, especially in the dating world, will take me from being a sniveling nice guy that actually does more damage unintentionally than I realized, to someone who's willing to handle being disliked, or willing to offend people, or willing to ruffle the feathers, because it actually will serve me and them better in the long run, even if they can't see it or I can't see it right now. So as you can see, there's a theme with the short-term versus a long-term investment. I'm very much like a long-term investment thinker when it comes to connections and relationships especially. And so for anybody who's out there who feels like, I'm a nice guy, I feel like I don't have confidence or courage, I don't know how to navigate these things, I don't know if I have value, you, by conducting yourself with forethought and by being as truthful as possible, automatically become more important, and you do more for the people that you interact with. And that reframe is just huge, because when, again, you get an analysis paralysis when you're like, what's the right thing to do? That's being a nice guy.
That's so nice.
Right?
Yeah.
But you're like, you know what? I need to speak plainly and I need to be direct, because that's how I best serve this person. I think men lose the fact that service is a big part of dating, but it's not in the way that you think. It's not that you do the dishes because you believe in equality. It's not that you rub her feet. It's not even that you pay for everything. It's actually that you don't sugarcoat things, because people desire the truth. And the more that you share the truth, the more that they trust you, and the better you serve them, and the better you serve yourself. And so it really does go back to service. Like if I got, let's say I was walking in here and I had shit in my teeth, and you're like, I'm not going to say because I wanted to feel bad. Well, then I look like a fucking idiot the whole time because I got shit in my teeth. And it's really like, maybe that's a really remedial analogy, but that's how I think about it, you know?
Yeah, dude, that makes so much sense. Or they can also read your book.
Yeah.
So tell us, how can people get involved in your community, your coaching, your book? When's it coming out? How can we get access to it? All the nuts and bolts.
So the book is going to be published in mid-August. I have
2025.
Yes. I have a Google form to fill out, and they get this free hinge guide, which is basic. I had so much fun putting this together. It's like a 12-page document that they download. You upload it to the AI of your choice, and it helps you reframe your dating profile to be more authentic and filter out the girls you don't want and attract the ones that you do want.
Wait. What is this?
And so that's like my lead magnet. That's the free thing for signing up for the book launch.
That's
it's valued at like $50, but offering it for free before the book comes out. Sweet. And so if anyone's on the dating apps, I'm getting so much good feedback for this. And it's basically what I did over 2 different periods of being single, which totaled in like 12 months and 80 first dates. So I just, like, all of that failing forward, I was like, how do I basically put this in one document, give it to AI, and let AI lead me through this process of being more authentic on the apps? And it's working wonders for guys. So I would encourage people to get the free guide, sign up for the book launch, and then Bates dates on everything, like YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. Also, the Dating Edge is my community. DM me. I'll tell people more about it if they want. I suspect it's similar to yours. It's a lot of, community, group calls, resources, personal development. Like we talked about that maybe before the podcast. And I'm going to be honest with everybody, which I'm sure you already have been. The key to dating isn't as sexy as you think it is. Yeah. It's long, slow, intentional, grinding personal development in every area of life. Yeah. However, like most things, the long-term investment or the incremental progression is the most rewarding, the most fun, and the most, honestly, satisfying thing that I think guys can do. Yeah. So stop going for the quick fix and the sexy turnaround, the 30-day glow up. It doesn't work like that. But when you start now, like 2 years from now, you're a different person and you didn't even realize it. I think that's the thing I'm most grateful for guys like you and me now that I'm becoming this guy. and guys going through the dating process, in my opinion, it is the most underrated tool for personal development that guys have.
Well, it makes sense, right? Regardless if it's business, showing up on social media, sales, dating, relationship repair, breakups, getting a healthy, chiseled body, actually sticking to a routine and eating healthy, the core fundamental of it is just self-awareness.
All the same.
It's all emotional
It's all the same. And that should be comforting, because you're like, oh, how do I do this? How do I build a business? How do I become more confident? How do I get the right woman? How do I get a better physique? Just you return to the basics every time. I think the dating world is unique because a lot of people choose to view it as different. But when you see it as being parallel to all these other realms, the steps that you take in that world actually pays off in every other realm. And I think that's something that we need to normalize.
Yeah, because I think it's leadership. The main thing that comes out of it for men is like masculine leadership. Because there's a difference between feminine leadership and masculine leadership. And men, I feel like we want to be masculine leaders, like majority of us. We want to have that feeling. We want to feel like protectors. We want to feel like providers. We want to feel like that we actually matter in the world and we're convicted to some sort of mission and purpose, and that our woman respects us for it and admires us for that.
Yeah.
Because that's where like the juice comes in for me. I'm like, I just want to be fucking admired by my partner and respected, like so much. When I get that, like, oh God, it feels so good. It's so recharging. It's like this energy that comes back to crushing the world. And it's like this, as you said, with that, part of the magic is like we get to have that. But that comes from, I think, the dedication to being a leader. So thanks for saying that, man.
Yeah, I love how you wrap that up, because I think it encapsulates it really well. And it actually brought me back to a point like 40 minutes ago that you said that I wanted to touch on, is leadership doesn't mean that you are traditionally successful. It means that a woman can see that you're working towards your potential, because you working towards your potential means that you have control over your emotions, or not even control, but you have a demeanor that makes her emotionally safe. That means that you are likely to earn her financial security. It means that if you can stay in that trajectory and have fun with it, that means she's going to have fun with you and joining your life. And so it's like, that's what leadership is. It's not that you get to the peak, right? It's that you're having fun as you blaze the trail. And I think that's a big reframe for guys, because like, well, I'm just starting my business, I shouldn't date. Dude, there's so much personal development here, and dating and or having the right woman in your life will expedite your success elsewhere. Why wouldn't you? It's like a generator. Why wouldn't you use this multiplier to your efforts? And so, but when you understand that, and when you invest in that area of life, women will follow your leadership. It doesn't matter what your bank account looks like.
As you were speaking that, all I can just vision is in Aladdin when they're about to go on an adventure, because he's taken Jasmine on an adventure, because he gets the girl, right? Aladdin gets the girl.
Yeah. He's a street rat. Yeah. He's a pauper.
He is, but he's on the magic carpet. And he puts his hand down. He's like, do you trust me? And like, boom, takes her on an adventure.
I just got chills, because that's one of my favorite Disney movies from growing up. Dude. And that's a great analogy.
Yeah. As you were saying.
We're done here.
Literally, that's all I could see, was just Aladdin just being like that. And as you were speaking, I just started getting goosebumps, bro. I was like,